Okay, here we are, Victor King and Jim Feist. Victor's in Florida. I assume it's sunny. We're in Vegas. I'm in Vegas, and it's not sunny, which is kind of unusual. I mean, to say that it's not sunny in Vegas, it's like a rare day. It's
Hmm.
maybe 10 days a year we might not have sun, but we don't have humidity like you have. I don't know. Do you have sun and humidity today?
Absolutely. Every day of the year, 365 days. It's humid down here.
Yeah, that's tough to take. What part of Florida are you in?
We're in the far west suburbs of Fort Lauderdale, which is on
Oh,
the
okay.
East Coast, um, about 30 miles, 30 minutes north of Miami. But we're in Weston and Sunrise, which are all on that far west portion of Fort Lauderdale, right before the Everglades begin. In fact, if you actually look out our office window in the back here, you can basically see the beginning of the Everglades. So that's where we're at here, tucked in the corner of the Everglades before civilization starts down here on the east side of South Florida.
Stay away from those alligators.
And they're around all around.
I used to in the late '60s, before I moved to Vegas in 1970. I lived in Lauderhill.
Huh?
In Inverary it was called, and my neighbor was Jackie Gleason.
There you go. The
Yeah,
Jackie Gleason Inverary Classic.
correct.
A great golf tournament. Absolutely.
Are you close to that?
Uh, we're about probably 10 miles west of there, 10 to 15 miles west. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty reasonable close.
Uh huh.
Well, we're here to talk some football,
Oh,
and
we are. Yeah.
you are incredible and knowledgeable when it comes to NFL totals, props, team totals, and you have a couple of puppy dogs that help you out with some of those things as well. Um, what do you see going on in the NFL this year that we should inform our listeners to bring them up to date?
Uh, well, in terms of totals, here we are in week 4. We've had a low scoring week. That was week 1, 41.3 combined points per game. We've had a high scoring week the very next week. Week 2, 49.8 points per game. So, what better way to close out last week's game 3 action by splitting everything right down the middle? That figures. And that's exactly what happened. 8 overs, 8 unders last week. The average over under line was 45.0. Average combined points 46.2. The average game ended up going over by only plus 1.2 points per game. Now, of course, there was a balance of shootouts. Jim, 6 games. Let me see here, had 56 or more points. So you had some shootouts. And there was 6 games with 35 or less points. What I would call a balance of snoozing type games. The interesting thing is through 3 weeks now, NFL games for this season, the year to date numbers stand at 22 overs, 26 unders on the year with an average of 45.8 combined points per game. And very interestingly, last season's full season average in the NFL was also exactly 45.8 points per game. And here we are 3 weeks into this season with the exact same point per game average as last week. Now, you asked me uh, what's been going on. Well, obviously, number one, we talked about it pre-show. You and I did. There's a lack of good offense in the NFL right now. Now, small sample size. We're only through 3 weeks, but NFL offensive yards per game right now for the season is at 317.9. That's extremely low. It's actually the lowest average going all the way back to 2005. So we're talking 20-year low here of offensive yards per game, only 317.9. And that's the surprising thing to me. in this 2025 season is that for who knows, there's probably multiple reasons we're seeing a lack of offense.
Now, when we talk about offense, everybody, first of all, the average person will say quarterback. Well, there's 32 quarterbacks, but right now we're heading to our sixth backup quarterback with Jackson Dart starting this week for the Giants. I don't know if Purdy's coming back for San Francisco or not yet. So that would be that we would start this week with 6 backup quarterbacks. Now, through 3 games, that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
That's a lot. I mean, and none of these guys are exceptional, the backups. Now, if they were exceptional, they'd probably be starting. But even the starters, we've had a lack of quality starting quarterbacks for a few years now.
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast last couple of seasons. You're absolutely right on that.
So, and these guys are supposedly growing and getting better. We hope they would. Not everybody will. I mean, Stroud came out. He had that amazing first year, but he slipped the last 2. But you can blame a lot. The whole thing about quarterbacks, and I read a book years ago about the offensive line being so critical. And I can't remember who wrote it and what the name of it was. It was so long ago. But it set me, if you don't block for the running backs, they're not going to get any yards. And if you don't protect the quarterback, he's not going to have enough time to get much production. So it seems to me as if I was an owner of a football team and I was going to get a quarterback and I'm going to have to eventually pay him a lot of money, I'd want to protect his ass. You know, it's like you should protect the things you value the most. I mean, don't you think that? Well, I mean, they like last week, I know the Chargers are 3-0 and they won 3 division games in a row, which is huge. And they're now set up perfectly for a playoff spot because they've already pretty much dominated their division.
Yep.
Now, but Herbert got hit 15 times in that game and they lost a running back. So now that hurts the run past option, you know, unless they can replace the running back with somebody. There's a lot of running backs out there that could probably be working. So, I mean, now they're going up against the Giants, who are not a very good football team, who are changing their quarterback, but that's the offensive side. They're supposed to have a pretty good front 7 that put pressure on the quarterback. That's on the defensive side, of course. Now, if that's true, I mean, Herbert's going to get his ass pounded again unless they just run the ball and throw a lot of short passes and not let him run very much. Because eventually, if you get hit 15 times a game like that, like he did last week against Denver, he's not going to last very long.
Right, you're going to end up like Andrew Luck, all right, who had to retire prematurely because of the lack of help on his offensive line for the Colts. And you saw what happened to him. So those are dangerous things in the NFL. You know, we're paying quarterbacks a lot of money. We're paying wide receivers these days a lot of money, tight ends a lot of money. On defense, the edge rusher gets a lot of money. But there's just not enough allocated to the offensive linemen, the guys in the trenches, the guys who are supposed to be protecting that quarterback. They're throwing around money like nobody's business to the Hollywood glamour positions, right? Yeah. But for those guys in the trenches, they are still kind of getting screwed over. You know, one of the other reasons, Jim, for the lack of offensive yardage, and there are various different reasons. I think it even goes back to right after the 2020 season, when they changed the NFL schedule. They reduced the preseason schedule from 4 to 3 games. They threw in a bye before the season even started. The fact that they reduced the practice sessions with pads. You don't see a lot of preseason practices with pads these days in the NFL as well. So as a result, week 1 of the NFL is basically a continuation of the preseason. And weeks 2 and 3 of the NFL are a feeling out process. So to me, it starts with the fact that they changed the schedule and teams are still trying to adjust. But number two, there's also a lot of unseen yardage in an NFL game that you don't see at first glance. I'm talking about kickoff return yardage and punt return yardage are both up this season. There's
Wow.
been scoop and scores. There's
Yeah.
been pick sixes. These are all yardages that you do not see when you first glance at a box score. But that's also one of the reasons that offensive yardage is down, because some of those special teams yardage totals have increased this season through 3 weeks, small sample size granted, but that's one of the reasons also.
We did have a lot of scoop and scores last week, block kicks. I mean, everybody, of course, that had the Rams is going to complain probably for the next decade about
And
that.
rightly so, definitely. And Mark mentioned something fantastic in the, of course, our Playbook Football newsletter, available now at playbooksports.com. And that thing that Mark mentioned in his first paragraph of the Pittsburgh Minnesota game. 7 of the 14 games played last Sunday in the NFL featured a game-winning score in the final 3 minutes of the game, ties the NFL record for most games in a single week with a score so late in the game. You guys may have talked about this during Wednesday's podcast, but not only weird scoop and score, interception return yardage, but furious fourth quarter come from behind comebacks when half of the Sunday's games come down to the last 3 minutes of the game as well.
We had one last night with Seattle dominating the game. Arizona comes back, gets it down to 2020. It almost went to overtime. They had a last second, 3 seconds, I think, was on the clock, field goal for Seattle to win it 23-20. But in reality, when you watch the game, they were far superior to Arizona.
Right. They had a 150-yard plus yardage advantage in the game. They probably should have pretty much doubled Arizona's score if you look at the stats. Here's the weird thing. When I combined both teams' offensive yardage yesterday, guess what it added up to? 318 yards per team.
Right.
And the average is 317.9.
Oh, my God.
So
really?
You want to talk about weird things. That's what happens when we start thinking too much, I guess.
Well, you've been doing so. How does all of this change the way you look at things? Because you've done this a long time, as have I, but you focus a lot more on totals than most people do. I happen to focus a lot more on totals as well. We had a podcast the other day. Well, we do at the Dom DeMarco restaurant, and we had Kenny White on. And he pointed out the fact that a bookmaker will take 25, 50,000 on a side, but if you ask them to take a big bet on a total, they won't take it.
Right.
Well, part of the reason is they don't get enough balance on the totals, because not everybody plays them, but they might give you 3,000 to 5,000. So why the difference? Well, they don't beat totals. Totals are more beatable than the sides, and over the years, I've found that to be true. I know last year in totals, I was close to 69% exactly in change, but the sides, I was only like 57%. So, I mean, I've had that kind of record over the decades. Years ago, I don't think you're old enough to remember this, but years ago, you couldn't even bet totals. The only thing you could bet in a football game was the side.
Right.
And there was no halftime betting. There was no prop betting. There were no totals betting. There was no team totals betting. It was just all you could do was bet on the sides. And then, of course, back in the day, that was back in the day when Mort Olshan was with us, and he was a great guy. I mean, he really helped the business along. Gene Slovacek, Otis Goss, and all those people really helped push the business. But they started to add more and more elements. And now with DraftKings and FanDuel and BetMGM and all these very creative people, you can bet on like anything.
Right.
In baseball, I saw lines, they give out first 3 innings. that you can bet.
Wow, I didn't know that. I heard
Yeah,
of the
they've got
first
first
five, but
five.
first
Now
three, wow.
they added first three. So I mean, it's really very. There's a lot of ways to add to your bankroll without going the old school just bet the sides, which might be the hardest way to win anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And if if week 3 it reminded us of anything in the NFL, it's what weeks 1 and 2 also tried to drive home. The fact that does anybody really know what's going to happen in pro football? I mean, who had the Browns beating the Packers last week, right? Who had the Carolina Panthers shutting out the Atlanta Falcons despite only about 200 total offensive yards? Vikings winning by 5 touchdowns with a backup quarterback. You mentioned the Rams Eagles bad beat. How about the over under bad beat you haven't talked about yet? That the Bears Cowboys game.
Oh yeah,
And the people who were on the over in that one got screwed for the second time in 3 weeks.
I
It's
was
like
one. I was
it's
one.
any Dallas Cowboy over the total betters are just snake bit like you would not believe. That game, Jim, that game was a replay of week 1 in the NFL. And if you
Yes, it
remember that
was.
week 1 Thursday
It
game,
was. Yes.
41 points first half, 3 points second half. Well, last week's Cowboys Bears game, what was that? 24-14 at halftime, 38 points, and only 1 touchdown in the second half. Now, I know that CeeDee Lamb went out in the first half, and that kind of restricted Dallas in the second half of that game, but there was some costly turnovers, that's for sure. And you want to talk, totals betting bad beat. That one was easily
Yeah.
the biggest one of last week, and of course one of the biggest of the season.
You're right. And then unfortunately, I lived through both of those, and I had the Rams too. So I've a couple through. That's 3 bad beats. I'm gonna have to start drinking more. I tell you, more tequila. I mean, it's just this is it. I said this is one of the mottos that I have. If you can't be comfortable being uncomfortable, you shouldn't be in this business.
Right. Boy, you got that. That was a great line. And tequila's the only pretty much hard liquor I drink these days. So you picked a good alcohol too. That's for sure.
So let's take a look at this week. We got some interesting games, and I don't want to. What the hell do you? I mean, I know we kind of go off script a little bit, but sometimes that's fun.
Sure.
Dallas Cowboys have maybe the worst defense I've ever seen in my life. They made Russell Wilson and Caleb Williams look like Roger Staubach and Tom Brady, and they're horrible. Matt Eberflus, who was terrible in Chicago as a head coach, is now their defensive coordinator, and they're awful. They're absolutely awful. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Now they're going to play the Green Bay Packers, who blew a game with 3 minutes to go. They were up 10-0, and they blew a game to a very good defensive ball club in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
They're going down there and pissed off. And, of course, they got Parsons coming down there, too. And he was traded at the last minute in the offseason. What do you think about something like that?
Well, who knows how many points? I'm a totals guy. Who knows how many points Dallas is going to score in terms of the full team total, which I believe is somewhere around 47.5 in that game. But there is a way that I'm playing it, Jim. It is just play the Green Bay Packers over their team total. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's a fairly low 27.0. There might be some 27.5s out there, but the timing couldn't be any better to load up on the Packers, finding a whipping boy and just going to town. That's for sure. They had that loss to Cleveland with only 10 points and only 230 offensive yards last week. And of course, you mentioned the Dallas defense. They're allowing 31 points per game. They surrendered career days to Russell and to Caleb back-to-back. It's an indoor game. Green Bay has a bye next week as well. They can let it all hang out if they want. Why not? You got a week of rest next week. And one thing I mentioned, and this is one of Tuco's plays in the tip sheet this week, is the Packers over their team total. If you take a look at Dome road favorites of 6 or more have averaged 29.6 points per game in the last 3 seasons. That applies to the Packers. When all is said and done and the smoke clears in Big D at Jerry's World, Green Bay can basically name the score in this one. That's for sure. You want to call it, 31-10, 38-14. Full game total, we're laying off, but the obvious play in this game is Green Bay over their team total, Jim.
That's an excellent answer. Excellent analysis. What else do you see on the card? I know
we've got an international
we
game.
have one of the lowest totals this week. We don't get to see numbers like this too often. 38 on the Tennessee-Houston game. That's really low.
Right, 2 teams struggling on offense. It's a division game. Week 4 is notorious for division game unders. This is a tough one. If you're going to be betting the under in this game, there's no cushion. That is for sure. You mentioned we're already down under 39, 38.5, pretty much across the board with Houston favored. Both teams struggling on offense. Of course, Houston, good defense. Obviously, if you got to lean toward the under in this game, I would not blame you at all. Another low total is that international game, the first of this
right.
First of this season's. Is it 6 international games? Let me see here.
Minnesota's staying overseas for 2 weeks in a row.
Absolutely right. They're pulling one of those things that you see from Jacksonville every once in a while where they play 2 international games in a row. That'll be the case for the Vikings. So we got this week's game is in Dublin. We got one in Wembley Stadium this season. We got 2 in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We got one in Berlin. We got one in Madrid. So, yeah, this week's game, it opened at 41.5. It's down to, there's some 41s I see, maybe even some 40.5s.
Correct.
All I can tell you is in some of these neutral site games, the under has come out slightly higher than the over. If we go all time, it's 24 and 26, 24 overs, 26 unders. We will say this, neutral site games with a low over-under line, less than 42, have actually gone 7-2 to the over in the last 12 seasons. That's 78% over. So I may be tempted to lay off the game. Again, some numbers suggest potentially more points. But I'm going to tell you one thing that I am going to be betting in this game is I want to get a little action in this early game. So I'm playing a prop here, and I'm loading up on my Minnesota Vikings TJ Hawkinson props, and I say that because of what Pittsburgh has done against tight ends so far this season. First off, Hawkinson finally got off the schneid last week when Minnesota made the quarterback change. He wasn't connecting with McCarthy in the first 2 games of the season, J.J. McCarthy. But with Carson Wentz at quarterback, throughout his career, and I believe this is Carson Wentz's 6th team in the last 6 seasons, right?
It is, yes.
That's amazing. But he's always relied on tight ends in his career. And Hawkinson finally came alive last week. Let me see here. He saw a season-high 25% target share last week. The Vikings play the Steelers this week. The Steelers gave up a big day to Hunter Henry of New England in last week's game, 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. So to me, a cool correlated way to play this game would be take Minnesota to win the game, take Hawkinson over his 38.5 receiving yards, maybe even throwing in a Hawkinson touchdown. And there we got a fun little nice 3 player or team type wager that could make that Sunday morning early game kind of interesting. So I'm leaning toward Vikings and then the 2 Hawkinson props. That could get us some fun in heck. What time does that game start for you guys out there?
I mean, it's 6:30.
6:30. Yeah, that's an early game. Jim, you don't get up in that early for that game, do you? Or will you?
I don't get up for that game, but every day I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Good for you.
So,
Outstanding.
but the one thing I do, I think we played a college game in the stadium earlier, and I think it was Iowa State against someone.
Oh, you mean the kickoff classic game in Dublin, right?
I think so.
Iowa State, Kansas State in week 0.
I think
right.
that was in this stadium.
Right,
And
it's right, same stadium.
Now, I didn't see the game, but someone told me they thought the field did not look in good shape.
Yeah, very sloppy. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that was in week 0, right? Yeah.
Right. I don't know if the NFL went in there and did something to make it better or not. But that would be good information if we could get it. I don't quite have that access to get that, but I'm going to try to find something that tells me what the field conditions might be. Especially, I did check this, and it's supposed to rain on Saturday over there.
Okay.
Now, that would make it probably a little more sloppy, especially if the drainage isn't great. These are questions and answers. I don't have some of these answers, but that's interesting. It could be a very sloppy field. To me, Minnesota is far better football team. Their roster from top to bottom is way better, and it's almost as good as any other team in the league.
The defense is head and shoulders better than the Steelers. We talked a little bit last week about some of the Pittsburgh defensive deficiencies on the season. So, yeah, I would agree that pretty much across all areas that Minnesota is the clear-cut better team in this. And it's not surprising. I think the look-ahead line was actually Pittsburgh -1, and Minnesota's already up to what, 2.5 point favorite?
It was Pittsburgh 1, and it's 2.5 minus 15, 14. Let's see, it's actually 2 3/4 if you look at the odds that are attached to it. So we might end up seeing a 3. But then I think when you see the 3, it'll probably get sucked up right away because there's people out there trying to grab it. But that to me, when numbers are like that, if I like a side, I just play the money line. So I'd probably play Minnesota minus on
right, and that would be the prudent thing to do, definitely. But that's the first of the international games. Minnesota will be playing Cleveland next week, also across the pond. You know what I thought was weird, Jim, was I've been looking at these late afternoon games. The late afternoon kickoffs, 4:05 Eastern time or later. And they've been pretty low scoring on the season. Let me check out our numbers here in the Totals Tip Sheet newsletter. They're now Sunday's late kickoff games have now gone 3-8 over-under on the season. That's 3 overs, 8 unders, only 40.4 points per game. So they've been pretty low scoring. With that said, I think this is the weekend when you're going to see a lot of points in these late afternoon kickoffs. I mean, you could tell, obviously, just from the over-under lines. Look at the four games. All 4 over-under lines are in the neighborhood of 47 to 49 points. Jacksonville, San Francisco, 47. Indy and the Rams, 49.5. Chicago and Las Vegas, 47.5. Kansas City, Baltimore, 48.5. 4 good games in addition to what are expected to be 4 of the highest scoring games of the day, and all in the late afternoon kickoffs. Kind of interesting.
Now, but they've been going under.
Yes, they have.
Why do they expect these to go over so much?
This is well, let's see. 1, 2. 2 of them are indoors. 2 of the 3 out of the 4 games are non-conference. So we're not talking division play, which tends to be lower scoring, like Denver and the Chargers last week. You're talking a non-conference game, which can be higher scoring. We're talking dome games, which can be high scoring. And you're talking between the Colts, the Rams, the Ravens, the Chiefs. You're talking about some, comparatively speaking, decent offenses taking on each other in the NFL, too.
Well, I don't know. Do you have strong opinions on these games, these 4 games?
We can tell you this: one of the four we are using as our King Creole 5-star game of the month. It is a
Oh,
totals play. I
oh,
can't I can't say whether it's an over or it's an under,
I
but
understand.
I can tell you it's in one of these four late afternoon games
Okay.
where we got some fantastic database material to back it up. And like always, like our totals tip sheet newsletter and like the playbook newsletter, our King Creole handicapping selections. Of course, Jim Feist is on the website too. Don't forget. Available always at playbooksports.com. You can go to the website, world class handicappers. Mark's up there, Jim's up there. I'm honored to join the guys as well. But out of those one of those four games, we got a really strong one that
I
I feel
guess. Yeah,
really, really good about, Jim. So you're
that's your
definitely going to
top.
want to check
That's
that
your
out.
top play, correct? I
Yep,
mean,
yep,
that's the 5-star. Is
yep.
it yours your top
Yeah,
rated?
we don't go any higher than that. We don't do a 100-star or 1,000-star that you see some other handicappers.
I remember those days when the certain people would. I have a 20,000 star play. I
Wow.
remember. That wasn't me. I didn't do that, but I remember hearing and seeing those.
While we're on the subject of still looking at this weekend's games, there's a first half team total that I want to cover, and I just kind of like the way that this one sets up, and it is in the New Orleans Buffalo game, right? This is that unreal high point spread. What is Buffalo favored by? 15 and a half, 16 points?
I'm looking for it
Uh,
right now. It's yeah, it's we've seen some 16 and a half, and there is still one out there at South Point that's here in Vegas. Most of them are 15 and a halfs.
and 48 for an over under line is pretty much across the board. Maybe a couple of 47 and a halves, but also some
You're right.
48s out there.
Mostly, yes.
Now, I am liking me some overaction in this game, but only in the first half. And let me explain why, and I think it'll make some sense here. First off, what intrigues me about this Bills Saints game is the fast pace that both of these teams are already playing with so far in the 2025 season. Both Buffalo and New Orleans are tied for first in the NFL in most offensive plays per game this season. The NFL average is right around 61.0 offensive plays per game. Both of these teams are at 69.0. So we're going to get approximately 16 more offensive plays in this game than we would in a normal
Hmm.
game if the numbers hold up. That is for sure. So that's kind of interesting. Not only that, but the Saints, and this is was wild to me. They're playing at a blitzkrieg type fast pace of only 23.8 seconds per play on the season. And the only thing that rivaled those type of fast numbers were the Philadelphia Eagles seasons back in 2013 and 2014 when Chip Kelly was running the Eagles offense. And they were playing those extremely fast paced games where they were running a play every 22 seconds. So again, 23.8 seconds per play in the NFL, number one by far. The next highest team is Washington at 26 and a half seconds per play. And then every other team in the NFL averages somewhere between 27 and 33 seconds per play. So New Orleans, uh, they're playing at an extremely fast pace. So
Right.
how can we take advantage of perhaps an over the total in this game, knowing that we're going to get a fast pace? Well, look at the point spread. We just talked about it. They're favored Buffalo by 15 and a half to 16 points. If they are blowing out New Orleans in the second half, which you would think, given game script and tempo of the game, then chances are Buffalo may try doing a let's run out the clock type thing in the second half. If they're up by 17, by 20, by 24 points, obviously an NFL team wants to shorten the game, get off the field, get their victory by running the ball a lot. So we're not going to play the over in the second half. We're going to play the over in the
Right.
first half of this game, a
Makes
number that's manageable at 24 and a half. And you know what? It doesn't hurt us either that the Saints are already 3-0 to the over this season in their first halves. 31.3 combined points per game average, while the Bills have been one of the best first half over teams since the start of last season. They've gone 13-6, 65% over the total in the first half of their games.
Wow.
So here's how we want to take advantage of what should be a fast-paced game. Play the over in the first half. 24.5. Saints, Bills over the total. I think we got something there. Hey, maybe Buffalo's winning 21-7 at the half, 24-7 at the half. We've hit our first half total, and chances are Buffalo will run the ball in the second half to ice the win. So in this type of game, lay off the full game total, first half over. I think we've got something there.
I think you're right. While you were talking, I decided to just check what the weather is in Buffalo. And it's clear, almost no wind, 74 degrees, no problems. There is some rain. I will mention Tampa Bay expects a little rain. Miami, of course, expects a little rain, but nothing big, and no wind, of course, is the biggest factor in football. Can't throw the ball, can't kick the ball. The only place, no, I don't see anything really bad. Some scattered showers here and there, but nothing, and no wind.
All right. I like it. So it doesn't look like Mother Nature going to impact too much this weekend in the NFL. Jim, let me get into a couple of individual player props. We pretty much split down the middle last week. The Josh Jacobs under, that was easy. I forgot what the other plays were here. But I think we pretty much went 50-50 with the props last week. But one I'm looking at this week is down in the Lone Star State. We talked about the game very, very briefly. Houston is hosting Tennessee in a division game. And Nico Collins finally had a breakout game last week, and we look for him to continue that. You know, he had his first big game. What did he catch? 8 out of 11 targets last week, 104 yards. His numbers, he opened up at 68.5 this week. It's up to 71.5. Nico Collins over 71.5 receiving yards. His market shares are awesome. He's running 79% of all team routes. He's still seeing a team leading 29.1% target share. And the reason that he had his best game of the season last week was the fact that the veteran Christian Kirk, wide receiver, returned from injury. So it basically means now that, CJ Stroud is now armed with a second viable non-rookie pass catcher past Collins. So Christian Kirk did get 8 targets last week. He did take some of the pressure off Nico Collins. The Titans, that's a pretty soft defensive matchup. The main reason, though, to back Nico Collins this week is, he had the 100-yard game on the road last week in Jacksonville, but Houston plays their home games indoors, and this Collins and CJ Stroud connection has been absolutely lethal in this home stadium. He's averaging 98.1 receiving yards a game at home when Stroud is at quarterback. So you may even want to consider going up the what we call the CJ Stroud ladder, and that is making a play on CJ Stroud over 71.5, making a smaller play on CJ Stroud over 80 yards, and then making even a smaller play. I'm sorry, on Nico Collins over 100 yards. What we call in the props playing the ladder.
This would be
where you bet over
under
a prop.
Alternate line betting, which is excellent. Yes.
Right, alternate line betting. So look for a big home game and probably Houston's first win of the season.
Well, they were not expected to look as bad as they have, so they need a breakout event. That's for sure.
Right. There's one that prop that a lot of people are This is the bandwagon prop because I just got a tweet that said this has been the number one most bet prop so far this week,
Oh, really?
and it is rookie running. And this is we're getting into our rookie running back section of the props. L.A. Chargers rookie running back Omarion Hampton over his rushing yards total. He opened at, let me see here, 58 and a half. As of just a few minutes ago, he's up to 65 and a half rushing yards. Again, it's the most bet prop of the week, but it makes complete sense here. Now, we know he got off to that slow start where Najee Harris, you mentioned, who's now out for the season, Jim,
Yes.
was the more productive running back in the first couple games of the season. Hampton looked good last week. He finally showed some improvement. He rushed for 70 yards on 19 carries against a very, very good Denver defense. He gets a much, much easier matchup this week against the Giants, who are ranked number 31 in the league in rushing yards allowed per game. The Giants are allowing 153.3. That's second worst in the NFL. And not only that, we talk a lot about game script and we talk about game tempo. And that is where we are looking at how the game will play out based on the point spread and the over-under line. Well, here you got the Chargers. They're laying virtually a touchdown on the road. So game script basically says that Chargers get out to a lead. They run the ball, put the hammer down in the second half, and load up big time on Omarion Hampton rushes. Um, a heavy workload this week for the rookie. I'm in agreement with the public on this. We're already at 65 and a half, but Hampton over 65 and a half rushing yards will be one of the props that we play this particular week.
Well, and one of the reasons that we brought up earlier, because Herbert did get banged around last week, so it does make more sense, exactly what you just said, that they would have more incentive to run the ball and save Herbert some hits.
Yep. Yep, definitely. Another rookie running back that has struggled, and this has been the case with all rookie running backs. They've struggled so far in the first 3 weeks of the season. The guy who was drafted number 6 by the Raiders, Ashton Genty, the kid from Boise State. He came into this year as the rookie of the year favorite. Remember, he was the favorite in the preseason. He's been bottled up so far, and I do acknowledge that. But like Hampton, he is coming off his best game of the season. He toted the rock for 17 carries, 63 yards against a tough Washington rush defense on the road last week and is returning home this week. I know his offensive line is struggling,
Yeah.
but we've got an ideal opponent for Genty to have his best game of the season, and that's the Chicago Bears. They're second worst in the league in rush yards allowed at 5.5 on defense. So this figures to be a Genty breakout game. It could very well be, again, in Vegas, in your neck of the woods, indoors, with a line of about 64 and a half currently. It kind of makes sense to load up on Ashton Genty over his total, along with the other rookie back, Omarion Hampton.
Excellent. Excellent.
Jim, there's one I want to close with, and then we can, if you want to take off, we can take off or talk about whatever you want. But there's a last to score TD prop
Ah,
that really, really intrigues me. I don't play these. I hardly ever play a first to score or a last to score. But based on the point spread in the game, and again, how the game figures to play out, there are two guys in the same game that I'm going to be betting on at decent long shot prices to score their last TD. And you know what? We just covered this game. Buffalo Bills, New Orleans Saints. Again, Buffalo 15 and a half, 16-point favorite. So that basically tells you that if you envision how the game is going to play out in your mind, Buffalo gets out to a big lead. We get into the second half of the game. They're cruising. They're absolutely destroying the Saints. What do you do when you're up by 3 touchdowns in the second half of the game? You start pulling your good players. You tell Josh Allen, Josh, sit down for the rest of the game. You're good, my friend. You tell James Cook, their number one running back, you've had a great monster first half, maybe a decent third quarter. We're going to sit you down, James Cook. So this is where the Buffalo second and third string running backs come into play. We're going to figure on Buffalo to score the last touchdown in the game, but it won't be a passing touchdown. Chances are, like I say, Buffalo could pull their starters by the fourth quarter of the game. Who knows?
Sure.
So we're going to play their second and third string running backs. That's Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. That's Buffalo's second and third string running backs to score the last TD in the game. Davis is at 15-1 odds. Johnson is at 16-1 odds. I'm playing them both.
Yeah, why not?
$20 a pop. If one of them hits, that's going to get you $300 or more. You want to escalate it a little bit more? No sweat. But again, it's one of these plays that just makes total sense. If you manifest the game in your head, you figure, how is it going to play out? Well, that makes sense. These guys get a lot of fourth quarter action when Buffalo is absolutely destroying their opponent. And that figures to happen this week, as they are, a 16-point favorite against the Saints.
And when you do an analysis like this, you almost have to look for a dominant team over an inferior team so you can picture it out that way. If you're talking about something that's competitive, you're not going to be able to figure that out. I mean, you might do the same thing with Green Bay, because we do think Green Bay just might annihilate Dallas, which you and I agree on.
Same thing, but a 15-point favorite. I mean, obviously, you can see which way the odds makers intend this game to go. And again, one guy's at 15-1, one's at 16-1. That's a decent long shot money there for both of those Buffalo running backs.
I agree. Maybe Green Bay should be a 10 or 12-point favorite too.
Yeah, you're right. The one thing that scares me about that Packer game is that if they somehow go to a favorite of 7 or more, and I'm just seeing 1 or 2 sevens have popped out there.
I see them right now. I do.
If that is the case, we have to remind the viewers of the podcast of that great stat or trend that we have talked about, I think, in each of the last 2 podcasts. The fact that NFL home underdogs of 7 or more in the first half of the season have now gone 23-1 and 2 ATS, with Cleveland covering last week and even winning outright over these same Packers. Now, that's the only thing that scares me, Jim, is that the Cowboys could potentially be in that situation that's gone a phenomenal 23-1 and 2 ATS.
That's hard to fade. That's hard.
It is hard to fade. The thing that, if you did bet Green Bay, hey, I bet Green Bay at -6.5 in the Wise Guy contest. So I'm with you. At least we know that Green Bay just lost in that situation last week. So they're probably not going to fall into the same trap 2 weeks in a row, right?
That's probably it's probably a game that we could, if we could find the right prices, and I know the prices are going up on these things, but if you could find the right price, because it used to be like even money, 6-point teasers. Now it's 120, 125, 130. I mean, I even saw one place at 135. I have a couple places where 115, 120, it's still reasonable. But to take Green Bay on a teaser with somebody else that you liked, it seems like a pretty strong. And maybe that's Denver, Green Bay, because since I don't know what the hell Cincinnati's going to do. They can't stop anybody, and obviously they're a wreck right now. But there's different ways of playing. But I should say that not the odds makers, but the bookmakers have raised the prices on teasers so much, it's really hard to lay those kind of numbers.
But that is a teaser that to me sounds like it's got some bite to it, some teeth to it, some meat to it. So you may have me on that one. We call that our Sunday night, Monday night primetime teaser or something.
No,
I kind of like that, Jim.
that's an interesting idea, right?
Yeah.
Interesting idea.
But that's just about it from what we got this week in terms of totals and props and TD scores. Obviously, we got plenty of action. We got newsletters galore, totals tip sheet newsletter, playbook newsletter, of course, everything available at playbooksports.com. And as always, I enjoy my time with Jim. We could talk hours if we wanted to.
Yeah, I think we could. It's a pleasure doing these. You're so well prepared, and the knowledge is incredible. I really enjoyed doing these. Great show here today, Victor. Good luck this weekend, and good luck to the puppies with their plays.
Thank you. You too, and take care of yourself. Keep me appraised of what's going on in that area. Okay. And again, tell the guys that you do the Tuesday and the Wednesday and the Thursday podcast that I said hello to.
Okay. Take care, Victor. Thank you,
buddy.